for the March 3rd public hearing for the Independent Redistricting Commission. I'm going to begin with the roll call. Honorable Chair Johnson? Here. Honorable Khan? Here. And Honorable White?
Present.
Yes, thank you. Next slide, please. So here we have our agenda for today's hearing. We can begin with public comment, but we also want to note that the public is welcome to provide comment later on during the presentation as well, so this is not your only opportunity. After, we'll move on to the approval of the prior meeting minutes, and then we'll begin with a presentation from the city's demographer, Dr. Daniel Phillips, as well as a discussion of the commissioner's availability for the March 30 public hearing. That's the hearing in which the IRC will decide on which map will be the city's next electoral district map. And lastly, we'll end with a discussion of future agendas. Next slide, please. And now, Chair Johnson, we can move on to the approval of prior meeting minutes.
And the minutes that have been provided are from the February 12th, 2022 meeting. Any objections, comments, clarifications from the members of the committee?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve?
Second.
Unanimous. They're approved. Thank you.
Thank you, and we can proceed with public comment.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure for us to be here. This is our largest outpouring of in-person interest. We're very grateful for it. This has been an educational process for us from day one. We are eager to be further educated. We have a lot of comments that people have asked to speak. I'm going to call them in the order that I received them. This is not meant to imply any preference to anyone. This is simply the order that I received them, and I think we're going to use that microphone. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you, and I'm going to start with Frank Rodriguez from CAUSE.
Night. Thank you. Good afternoon, almost good night. My name is Frank Rodriguez. I'm a policy advocate with CAUSE, the Central Coast Alliance United for a Sustainable Economy. And we appreciate all the work the commissioners have been doing in order to look at the new district map for the city of Santa Barbara. For us, we have been liking the focus on the Latino CVAP. We know that that's really important for our communities, and as CAUSE, we really focused on the loss or the push out of a lot of communities of color, which we know that this redistricting process has shown, especially for District 3 and 1. And so for us, we're talking as a staff, we're still open to see the process, but we have been liking 105B over 105A. And I think either one did a good job in raising the CVAP in District 3. But looking at the history, especially of Santa Barbara, and knowing the difference between the development and the populations of East Beach and West Beach, talking about the times when we had segregation and people of color were pushed to live in that East Beach area. Over time, that, of course, became the funk zone, became an area that became a lot more profitable because it's right next to the beach, right next to Stearns Wharf, which pushed out a lot of those communities of color. So really trying to uplift that we remember that and we think about that when we're making policy decisions, talking about these areas. And I appreciate how District 1 and 3, we're trying to get the higher Latino CVAP to make sure that we're listening and hearing from all the various communities here in our city. And those are the main points I wanted to bring up.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. History is always important to us, and you all know it in a way that we just don't. The next speaker will be Fred Marsh, representing himself and the Eucalyptus Hill Homeowners Association.
Good evening. My name is Fred Marsh. I'm the president of the Eucalyptus Hill Homeowners Association. This is a community of 28 townhomes located on the west side of Eucalyptus Hill Road between Salinas Street and Alameda Padre Serra APS. Our community has two concerns with the maps that we have seen. First, our concern is that all of the proposed maps have, for some reason, moved the canyon that is on the east side of Eucalyptus Hill Road, have moved that canyon from District 4 into District 1. And this canyon is largely unpopulated, it's wild, and in fact is the single greatest fire risk to our community in a high fire zone. District 4 is a high fire risk zone, District 1 is not. That canyon is very sparsely populated. There are a couple of homes along one side of the canyon that are included in that redistricting, but the homes that are around the majority of that canyon do not change their district. They remain in District 4. So that means that the concerns of those homeowners around that canyon, including our own community of 28 townhomes, we would be in a separate district from the area that we consider to be our greatest single source of fire risk. We strongly recommend that canyon should remain in District 4. The streets that are bordering that canyon include Alston Place, Sema Linda Lane, Eucalyptus Hill Circle, and Eucalyptus Hill Road. Those residents deserve to have a council member that is responsible for the city property in that canyon as well as their own areas. Our second concern with the maps specifically relates to map 105B. This map includes the same problem I just discussed with regard to the canyon, but in addition, it also relocates areas east of Eucalyptus Hill Road and south of APS, and relocates them in from their zone, District 4, and moves them into District 1. Those areas have very little in common with District 1. The homes on Overlook and Eucalyptus Hill Circle all are essentially single-family homes and in high fire areas with narrow streets connecting them on hillsides, whereas District 1 is essentially a flatter area with high-density urban populations. So we believe that the areas that are shown there are more compatible with District 4 where they are now. Those are our concerns, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marsh. And I want to emphasize, we're not being rude if we're not looking at you all the time. We are trained to take notes as we listen all the time. That's what we've been doing for the last 50 years of our lives. And so if I'm taking notes, I'm really looking at you. The next speaker is Hudson Doherty.
Hi, I'm Hudson Doherty. I also live on Eucalyptus Hill Circle and have the same concern about the fire risk of the canyon that Fred Marsh was just talking about. It is actually in the Zone 1. It appears to me, looking at my Google Maps satellite view, only half of the canyon along the canyon part, the lowest part of the canyon on the west side, appears to be in Zone 1, and the side on the east side of the lower part of the canyon seems to be on Zone 4. The whole canyon should just be in Zone 4 because that's where the fires are going to go whooshing down from the hills. So that's basically our concern is fire.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Roxanne Claire.
Thank you. Roxanne Claire, and I also am a resident at Eucalyptus Hill Circle. I'd like to reiterate what our President Fred Marsh said and what our concerns are. And in looking at the maps, I mean, I understand that it's the demographics and voter majority in giving everybody a fair say. We kind of feel that if we just took out that canyon, that wouldn't leave voices unheard in any population group, but we would feel underserved by not having a representative that was familiar with the high fire area. So the rest of the maps all look great. We have no concern. We're just requesting that that canyon be retained in District 4 and not moved into District 1. Don't think it would affect any voting rights either. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Leslie Wiscom.
Good evening, Honorable Commissioners. I'm Leslie Wiscom, and I'm a city resident. In establishing the Coastal Act of 1976, the legislature found and declared that the public has a right to fully participate in decisions affecting coastal planning, conservation, and development, and that the continuing planning and implementation of programs for coastal conservation and development should include the widest opportunity for public participation. The Coastal Act goals and policies state, assure orderly, balanced utilization and conservation of coastal zone resources, taking into account the social and economic needs of the people. The City of Santa Barbara Local Coastal Plan Update, certified by the Coastal Commission in 2019, states that coastal zone is complex and features a variety of natural features and land uses. To address this complexity, the coastal zone has been divided into 10 component areas that range from mostly residential and open space to industrial and mixed use. NDC plans 102, 103, 102R, 103R, 104, 105A, and 105B, in my opinion, conflict with the Coastal Act by giving representation of our diverse coast exclusively to 1 or 2 districts, not the 4 in our current plan. Therefore, only NDC plans 101 and 101R have the best balance for representation in our diverse coastal areas, as 5 districts are represented. I also have some comments about proposed changes in District 4 on NDC plans 103 and 103R. The city implemented the long-awaited Community Wildfire Protection Plan in 2021, whose goal is to develop a comprehensive, coordinated wildland fire program to protect lives, property, and natural resources threatened by wildland fire. In addition to spearheading efforts for this plan, our District 4 council member, Kristen Snedden, who recently overwhelmingly won a second term of 5 years, successfully championed for new restrictions in our high fire hazard areas for accessory dwelling units in consideration of public safety. Carving up our high fire hazard areas, as shown in NDC plans 103 and 103R, and by the previous commenters, 105B, does not illustrate the traditional redistricting principles of respecting voters' choices and preserving the core of existing districts. In conclusion, please consider our existing map or NDC Plan 101 or 101R as the most acceptable for representation in our city, including our high fire hazard areas and our diverse and complex coastal zones. Thank you very much for your time and all your work.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lindsay Baker from the League of Women Voters in Santa Barbara.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and Commissioners. I'm Lindsay Baker speaking for the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara. I recently had the privilege to interview Senator Monique Limon and Representative Steve Bennett regarding redistricting specifically, and they were both concerned about public meetings and outreach. This evening, I overheard comments about how this meeting was being public Was it on Zoom? Do we have translation? How do we have translation? I would like to say that I observed the Santa Barbara County meetings for a year of the Redistricting Commission, and they had simultaneous Spanish translation during the meeting, and they had Zoom and the public meeting simultaneously. At one meeting, there were 40 individuals speaking in-house and over 100 on Zoom. So Zoom had the most outreach to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Loy Beardsmore from the Eucalyptus Hills Improvement Association.
I just gave you all maps of the Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association boundaries. We are looking at these maps, and we feel that 101R and 105B should not be excluded from District 4. Our organization includes the Eucalyptus Hill Circle area, and it has traditionally been part of our area for the past 50 years. And I know one of your goals is not to disrupt neighborhoods or communities of interest. And so anything that would divide our area from taking out from District 4 would not be in alliance with your goals and your rules. In that canyon that goes along there, part of the reason this is the first time I've weighed into this is because we have been very much involved with fire hazard mitigation. We are the only homeowners group in Santa Barbara that has undertaken this with private funding from our homeowners to try to do what we can. Last spring, we brought in goats for fire mitigation. We are intending to do that again in one of our canyons, and this canyon that is listed here on these maps, we are looking to do fire mitigation there as well. Without our organization representing that canyon and looking out for homeowners that border this canyon and this neighborhood, you will have no one advocating to do what we're trying to do. We have participated in the CWPP process, and in doing so, we have recognized that canyon as a high fire danger area. The fire department has done mitigation in the past. That was over 10 years ago, and their funding and their resources are looking at not being able to do that for another 3 to 5 years. So as you look at these maps, please take into consideration high fire danger areas. Do not delude us from having a representative. Kristen Sneddon has done well to try to do as much as she can to help protect us. So I sincerely ask, you've got our map in front of you. Please, at all costs, do not do anything to separate us from keep being coherent and in moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Councilmember Kristen Sneddon.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioners. And I really especially want to thank you for taking the driving tour through the city. And I think possibly now you have a deeper understanding of how different these districts are with the hillsides, the high fire considerations, and not just fire, but the steepness of the slopes and the narrowness of the roads and several other characteristics of that hillside area that need representation as a cohesive voice. Looking at the maps, I appreciate the working with the 105A and B and those changes there. I continue to advocate for 101R, mainly because it keeps most of the high fire together, and for the District 3 representative for the west side, continues that on to the waterfront and to Leslie Wiscom's comments about the waterfront having more representation is beneficial. I'd like to support the Eucalyptus Hill Association in that canyon. They have worked very hard and raised their own funds to be able to mitigate fire in that canyon, and it is all part of one neighborhood. And I might suggest that on 101R, there is a pocket that's in District 4 that could go probably more characteristically with District 1, and it's right in the center here where you have the east side area, and then there's this little bit of the purple blue in District 4 that could be captured all the way within the east side. And those homes are very much in character with all of the east side, and you would probably increase the CVAP numbers there too. So that's if the canyon could be retained within District 4, and then I think that little area there demographically would help satisfy some of the further needs. So I just want to advocate for 101R or 105B with the canyon of Eucalyptus Hill being retained back into District 4.
Council Member Snedden, if you could show us, the
Yes.
map was so tiny. we
None
couldn't
of
see
our
it.
eyes can do that. If you'd come forward and just literally point it out to us for just a second. Do you want to just show them too, and then they can circle it on theirs? Thank you. Yes, I think I can describe it verbally. If you look at map 101R, we have the pink area, which is District 1. On the top pointy corner, straight up at 12 o'clock, is a two-sided square, and the other two sides sort of ripply purple area that is what has been circled. Can we see it? Does everyone get it? Okay. Thanks. All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Jordan. I think last time I referred to as Mary because I didn't read your handwriting. Millie, I didn't read your handwriting well enough. Now I know.
Good evening, and it's, I don't usually write that stuff down on there. It's District 2 Councilmember Mike Jordan, but I try not to hide on that. Thank you for being here again tonight. And again, as Kristen said, thank you for that tour today. I think it does help to show you both the geographical and the obvious separations in neighborhood. My real reason to being here tonight was to really express concern. I was told this morning that the process going forward, this has popped up on our future agenda for sometime in April for the decision date at council. And I was told that your determination on what would be your preferred map would not hold another public hearing after you made that decision, but it would appear at council. And so I heard tonight that you will have a meeting the end of this month where you will show your preferred map, and we'll get an opportunity to comment on that and let you defend it. So thank you for that. I continue to just generally have concerns that we continue to stray far from the established districts as they have been set up already, which erodes the feeling of district community and neighborhoods as they are already. There continue to be fingers going east and west and north and south that don't exist now in all the districts. I suspect, I don't know what I'm talking about really, but I suspect a lot of this is due to District 3 and the considerations of loss of voter numbers, and I don't know how to help you solve that one. But a couple comments on the voter makeup. My understanding from our legal counsel in reference to the Benalles decision is that the city's obligation to provide a majority-minority district is an intent or a desire, but not a legal requirement. So I see much of the concern over trying to get that Latino number up to the highest possible percentage in that district. And I don't know that that's a requirement. I believe that's a desire. And I would also pose, too, that I also believe that even the numbers that are in the 40s remain a minority district as they are. They just don't happen to be a minority purely of Latinos, that it is still not a white majority district in all of the maps you've put together. So thanks for all your hard work. Look forward to seeing the next iteration on the end of March.
Thank you. I'm going to call on the next speaker as soon as I finish this note. The next speaker is Sheila Lodge.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Sheila Lodge, and I want to express my concurrence with the comments of many of the speakers before me about keeping the high fire area together. I live in District 4. I've had to evacuate 4 times. I've lived there for 50 years, and one of the fires burned a barn across the street from me. It's a really critical issue, and it's critical that we have someone representing that area, and that includes it. Actually, it seems the districting that was done in 2015, they did a very good job, and very little is needed in changes to meet with the results of the census. So I strongly support 101R, and because it seems to me that best makes the least changes and best serves the needs of the different communities. And I know you will be working on District 3 and increasing its representation so that little changes will accomplish what the goals of this commission are. Thank you very much.
And our last request for comment in this section is Dr. Lana Ebenstein.
Thank you very much for your time and service. I'm speaking on behalf of the Committee for District Elections. We would really like to thank the council members who have participated in this process. And if I'm missing someone tonight, I apologize, but Councilmember Gutierrez, Councilmember Jordan, and Councilmember Sneddon. And we've tried to listen to some of the District Elections Committee has tried to listen to some of the comments of the council members, whose opinions we think are very important, given that they represent these areas. With respect to the issue, so 2 points. One, the map 105A is close to what the Committee for District Elections will be submitting to you next week. We will have one final tweak on the 105A and B. But these were maps that we developed with National Demographic Corporation. Would very much like to thank Daniel for his assistance in doing that. It's very helpful, very, very, very much of assistance. And just to speak to these maps, and our own map will be slightly closer. It'll be possible, if you look at 105A and B, with District 3 Latino CVAP of 46%, in 105A and 46% in 105B. They are within a smidgen of several tenths of a percentage point of being not Latino majority CVAP districts, but Latino plurality CVAP districts. And that's our position of the best second case outcome is if it's not a Latino majority district, then it's a Latino CVAP district. Is a Latino plurality CVAP district. As I said, it's within tenths of a percentage point, and we believe that it's possible to get those last few percentage point, tenths of a percentage point, and we'll be submitting that to you for your consideration at before your last hearing. What I would note too about 105A and B is that all of the high fire areas are within District 4. That is to say, all of the area north of Alameda Padre Serra and Foothill Road with the exception of some area in the Eucalyptus Hill. And that's because that's all in one census tract. And, you know, we would be open to that being split if that's somehow feasible, to keep all of the high fire area in it. But that's the only reason why that area goes north of APS in the Eucalyptus Hill area. But other than that, we agree with Councilmember Sneddon with respect to trying to have a high fire, a district with all the high fire area in it. With respect to Councilmember Jordan's comments on the existing maps, or trying to move away from districts that are not fully representative and compact, I guess would be the best terminology, would just call your attention to, again, 105A and B, that has the Castillo Street line, and that makes it a wider district and a more compact district. In other maps, the three can go as far as up to Las Positas Road, and be very narrow and exclusively west of Highway 101. And we think that, this builds on some comments from Councilmember Gutierrez, that there are benefits to District 3 being on both sides of 101. It has already been that way historically in the southern part of the district, but we think that the Castillo line makes sense. There's a number of pedestrian overcrosses on Highway 101, as well as vehicular overpasses at at Mitchell Terrena, Mission, and Carrillo. And then there are pedestrian overpasses. As well, the West Side Community Center is located on Castillo Street. So there's a number of reasons why we think that that's a boundary that would make sense. The maps outlined in 105A and B are more compact, and we hope that will lead to better outcomes and districts that represent true communities of interest. So our only concern on 105A or B is that on one, almost all of the East Beach area is districted to District 2, and in the other one, it's almost all districted to District 4. We think that it's possible to split the difference on that and be somewhat more representative of both. And in particular, place the waterfront and City College in District 2, which would be in Councilmember Jordan's district. So those are thoughts that we have. Again, we appreciate the time and effort. We will have a map coming out next week. We would note, too, that it really isn't possible. If you look at those percentages on maps 101 through 103, the map 101, Latino CVAP at 41%, 101R 41%, 102 40%, 103 40%, 103R 40%. We don't think that those meet the intent of the Benialis decision, and that something along the lines of 104 or 105A or 105B, and again, we'll be coming in with our final suggestions to you on that, which will create a Latino plurality district in District 3, as well as a Latino majority CVAP district in District 1. Thank you again for your consideration and service. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Doctor. Any other comments? And we will have another opportunity as well. You've heard mention tonight of a road trip that we took today, which was extremely enlightening for us. We understand that persons who are not citizens of the city of Santa Barbara are not supposed to serve on this commission for obvious reasons. We have no political interest ahead of us in this, but it still means there are people who are a little less familiar with your beautiful city than if locals were serving on this commission. So the city put together a wonderful, wonderful trip for us to get a much better look at the city, and we really do appreciate it. Michelle.
Thank you. And so now we will move on to our demographer's presentation. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you very much. Good evening, honorable commissioners and members of the public. It is a pleasure to be with you here tonight, especially since I myself am a resident of the city, so I care a lot about this process, and it's exciting to be a part of. So what we'll go through tonight is a selection of the plans that are on the table. I did not include the original versions prior to the R suffix that was indicated that there was a slight revision made, but all of the plans are available on the Redistricting webpage, and I would be happy to go to that webpage and show you any plan and any of the demographics for those plans that you might want to see. So a reminder first of the rules and goals that are governing this process. And so the first are those that come from federal law. And the first and foremost of those is that the districts be equal in population. And by population, we mean all people counted by the census in 2020, which includes children and non-citizens. Now, they don't have to be exactly equal. There is wiggle room that is allowed, a 10% difference between the most populated and least populated district. And the idea of giving you that wiggle room is so that you can take into account all the other considerations that are on this slide. So the next one being the Federal Voting Rights Act. And the idea there is not doing anything that would substantially dilute the voting influence or power of a protected class group of people. And the Voting Rights Act defines protected classes as those who are historically marginalized or disadvantaged, often a racial or ethnic minority group or linguistic minority group. But on the flip side, the courts have been clear that we don't want to make race or ethnicity the only or main consideration in this process. It has to be a consideration in order to be in compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act, as well as the Benally's stipulation, which I'll get into, but it should not be the ultimate. So next you'll see the California criteria for cities. These are what comes from state law. And you'll notice that here we have a rank ordered list. You'll see it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And the idea there is the state recognizes that it may not be possible to adhere to all of these. And so what it does is it makes it clear which ones to prioritize. So if you can't satisfy all of them, you would want to prioritize the ones that are higher up in the list. And the very highest one is that the districts be geographically contiguous, just one piece each. A second is to avoid dividing neighborhoods and communities of interest, which we've heard a lot about tonight. Communities of interest in particular are socioeconomic and geographic areas that should be kept together. So a potential example could be a high fire risk area or a coastal area or a downtown, any of these that we receive public testimony to the effect that these areas belong in the same district. Number 3 is for the districts to have easily identifiable boundaries. So the idea is for the districts for people to recognize easily where one district stops and the other begins. Maybe that would be a major street or a railroad or a highway or something to that effect. Lastly, the last criterion would be to have compact districts that do not bypass one group of people to get to a more distant group of people. So you will see in some of these plans, you could argue that some of the districts that are drawn are not as compact as you might have in ideal circumstances, but the thing to note here is that it's the very last priority criterion. So the idea is to satisfy higher priority criteria, the districts may not always be as compact. And lastly, we don't want to take into account any partisan data in this process. There are other traditional redistricting principles that you may want to consider, so long as it is not at the expense of the federal and state legal criteria. And this includes minimizing voters shifted to different election years, respecting voters' choices or continuity in office, accounting for future population growth, and preserving the core of existing districts. So I mentioned the Benally stipulated judgment, and I'll read this in full so it's clear to everyone what the text explicitly says. The intent of the parties is the electoral district map shall include 2 electoral districts in which Latino eligible voters constitute a majority of the eligible voters according to the most recently available relevant estimates from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey, tailored to the greatest extent possible in a manner consistent with the federal and state law, so as to address any issue of vote dilution. So this is the current plan, and so with the current plan, you have District 1 on the east side, District 2 on the Mesa, District 3 on the west side, District 4 in the hills, District 5 along Upper State, and District 6 downtown. Now with the current plan, the total population deviation is over 20%. And when it comes to the very first of these federal criteria, equal population, the courts have interpreted that in such a way that any total population deviation that is under 10% is considered presumptively constitutional. So as you see here, it's well past 10%. So there really is no option for keeping the current plan because of that. It would be in violation of the very first of the federal criteria. So that means that we have to redraw the map in some way. And the first plan that you see here, 101R, is the way you can redraw it that makes the least amount of changes to the current plan. And it was revised slightly from the original 101 so that District 1 has a majority of its Latino population, Latino citizen voting age population. That is a majority of the total citizen voting age population. And to do that, we actually took out this area. It was originally in District 1 under the unrevised, the original 101, but we took it out so that we could get to 50% while ensuring that you still have that coastal connection for District 1. So the result here is that the boundary between Districts 1 and 4 is changed to achieve that majority. District 3 expands southward toward West Beach for purposes of equal population at the expense of District 2. So District 3, as it currently stands, is the most underpopulated district. So it has to add territory in order to get to an equal population with the other districts. So it's just a matter of where it expands. Under this plan, that you might call the minimal change plan, we take it southward so that it has a portion of the coast. That does, however, cut off District 2 from State Street. And so the other consequence is that it is a lower Latino citizen voting age population percentage because the area toward the beach is less Latino. Districts 5 and 6 are essentially unchanged under this plan from the current. And this plan gives every district a piece of the coast except for District 6, which is landlocked. There really is no way to give every district a piece of the coast. And it gives every district a piece of State Street except for District 2, as I mentioned. Again, there's no way we can do every single district. So next is Plan 102R. And this, you might call the moderate change plan from the current plan that was adopted in 2015. The one revision to the original 102 was to put Coast Village in District 4. So under this plan, District 1 shifts east away from State Street so that it takes in more of the Laguna neighborhood. And District 3 shifts west away from State Street so that it is completely west of the freeway and covers the whole west side and lower west neighborhoods. I do want to point out the issue that was raised by several of the commenters, this little peninsula, you might say, of District 1 that goes into Eucalyptus Hill. We certainly didn't do that on purpose. It's because of the way the census block is drawn. And so the census block that includes this little piece goes all the way down into here. So we would need to receive direction from you to split that census block in a manner that would allow that, that piece to be included in District 4. We have done census block splits before. The challenge is we have to estimate the number of people who live in one part of the census block versus another, and it can be kind of crude how we do that. We basically had to count rooftops, or in the case of multifamily dwellings, the number of units, and assume that the number of households in one part of the block is equivalent to the number of people. So it's a crude estimate, but it's the best we can do. And when it probably won't have an effect on the total population deviation for the city as a whole, and there's good community of interest reasons to do so, we can do so. But let me continue discussing this 102R plan. So District 2 shifts east so that it covers the whole waterfront area. And the reason it does that is because District 3 takes in a lot of the former 2 territory that's this part of the west side neighborhood. And so it has to pick up population somewhere. And so we continue the coastal theme by taking it eastward. District 6 shifts south so that it covers the whole central business district, ending at Highway 101. And Districts 4 and 5 are essentially unchanged. One other thing I want to note here is that this area here, we can also split off from that census block. It's a really giant, awkward census block that takes in this whole area. And that is actually Montecito Country Club. So it really probably fits culturally better with District 4 anyway. And there's no people who live there, so it would be a very simple block split we could do. 103R is the next plan, and you might call this the more significant change plan. With this plan, we shift District 1 east away from State Street so that its western boundary is along Garden. And so you have most of the Laguna neighborhood in District 1 under this plan. And District 3 shifts west just like it does with the last plan, so that it's exclusively west of the freeway. But with District 2, as opposed to the last plan where we compensated its population loss by going east along the beaches, we actually go west so that it takes in all of southwestern Santa Barbara, including all the hilly areas on both sides of Las Positas. Now, to do that, it forces District 5 to shift as well in the northeastern direction, so that District 5 takes in all of northwestern Santa Barbara, including both San Roque neighborhoods and the Foothill neighborhood up here. And because District 4 loses population, it has to pick up population from District 6. And in that case, it takes in the Upper East and Oak Park neighborhoods that are north of Mission Street and east of Garden Street. And so finally that causes District 6 to shift south to gain the whole waterfront area. And so the effect of that would be to combine all of the what you may call visitor or tourist serving commercial areas into one district, basically. So when I go through all these plans, you'll notice at the bottom right, there are a few key statistics, including total population deviation, District 1 Latino CVAP, our citizen voting age population percentage, and District 3, the same. And so you'll notice that some plans have a higher deviation than others. This last plan gets pretty close to the threshold, maybe a little too uncomfortably close. Plan 104 was drawn in order to try to achieve a District 3 where you have as close to, as you can see here, no change in District 3 Latino citizen voting age population. And that is relative to the current plan. So if you go back to the current plan, it's 45% in District 3. So with 104, you get no decrease like you do with the other plans. You'll see here it's 41, 40, and 40, but under 104, it's 45. So you still get a majority in District 1. And so District 3 is now shifting east so that it takes in more of the lower state and part of downtown, as well as north to get the necessary population. District 6 crosses the freeway to gain the area between Modoc and the freeway. District 2 is, again, a very coastal district. And Districts 4 and 5 are essentially unchanged. And the total population deviation is just less than 8%. So now let's turn to the plans that are new for tonight. And I'm calling these plans 105A and B because they're essentially two versions of the same approach. And that approach is to try to achieve a District 3, which is more compact than what you have under Plan 104, but still is trying to be faithful to the intent of the Benally stipulation by having a Latino citizen voting age population that is very, very close to plurality. Not quite, but given the margin of error with this type of data, it's very feasible that it is actually a plurality Latino district when it comes to citizen voting age population. And it's a majority-minority district as well. So if you add the Latinos, the Asians, blacks, all non-white groups together, they would together be just barely a majority of the citizen voting age population in District 3. And so District 1 is still a majority Latino district. It's, you'll see the boundary between Districts 1 and 3 is Garden, a relatively major thoroughfare. And so it could be considered an easily identifiable boundary between those two districts. And District 3 is shifting east so that it spans both sides of the freeway as a a previous commenter mentioned, it uses Castillo Street as its eastern boundary rather than the freeway itself. And he mentioned that as well as that there's a community center that is on that side of the freeway, but west of Castillo, and the pedestrian bridges as well. So it also takes in part of downtown. So basically, District 3 becomes a giant capital letter L. And so, yeah, it's pretty well compact. Now, so with 105A and 105B, it's the same approach with districts 1 and 3. So the difference between A and B is what to do with the surrounding districts. The approach of 105A is to expand District 6 so that it takes in the Upper East neighborhood south of Mission Street. And so because it's taking a chunk out of District 4, you need to swing District 4 around to make sure it has the necessary population. And to do that, you take it all the way down to the City College. Although there is a potential to make the boundary between 2 and 4 along Castillo so that the City College is completely in District 2. And you can include the harbor in District 2 as well. But you do have to have for population purposes, West Beach and East Beach in District 4. And it would be a fairly non-compact district as a result. But like I said before, that's the very last of the criteria when it comes to order of priority. But as I noted, this area here that's currently pink, we can easily turn purple the Montecito Country Club, which will mean that it's not such a narrow connection between the bulk of the district and its peninsula, you should say. So District 2 now has more of the west side, but less of the beach as a result. And as I mentioned, District 4 loses part of Upper East but gains the waterfront. And District 5 is basically the same. So total population deviation is just under 9%. And 51 and 46% are the CVAP totals. So with 105B, like I said, 1 and 3 are essentially the same. But instead of District 6 picking up the Upper East neighborhood south of Mission, it goes further across the freeway past Modoc into this part of the west side neighborhood that is north of Mission. And so because you don't cut into District 4 so much, it doesn't have to go so far into the beaches. And you can make the boundary between District 2 and 4 along Milpa Street. So that really is the main difference between those two versions. So I'm happy to take your questions and hear about any revisions you might want to see or direction as far as bringing a new plan forward or anything to that effect. There's also the interactive review map that I've pulled up on this internet browser, which I would be happy to delve into for more detail if you'd like.
He might have questions of him. Okay. This way.
I did have a question, and that is for the Eucalyptus Hill residents. How difficult is it to alter the census so that we can take in those two little fingers?
It shouldn't be too difficult because there are only a few houses in that little protrusion, and we can easily count those houses looking at a satellite view, and we would just make the estimate and then cut it where right where that, right where that protrusion goes into the canyon. Mhm.
Judge Khan? Hold on one second. We'll take more public comment in just a second. I don't think I had any other questions either. I had the same one Judge White did. Okay. All right, so now if there is additional public comment, do you need a little slip from them? Okay, good enough. And I see immediately a comment. If you come to the microphone, please. We'll put up whatever map you ask for. I think we can do that. This is Ms. Beardsmore, right, from EHIA? Okay.
So I am concerned with 105B. It does really cut into our neighborhood, actually cuts into my street where I live. I'm trying to represent about 700 households in the Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association, which includes the Eucalyptus Hill Circle area. And in looking at 105B, it does cut out a portion of our homes. If you look at that peninsula that is on 105A that has been referred to, if you look at that, the peninsula that's going up there, I can tell you right off the bat that there's 6 to 8 homes maximum along Eucalyptus Hill Road there. I know at least 2 of those are part-time residents, so I don't even know if they're registered voters in the city. If you look at to the left of there, which covers the Cleveland School area, and it covers APS going up to the Cleveland School area. Along there, there's probably maybe 4 or 5 homes there. And we do, Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association does a lot of outreach and work with Cleveland School. We've done a lot of donation work there. We have people from our community that are working there. I don't know if that weighs into how you do things that way, but I really have a problem with 105B because that does cut out the Eucalyptus Hill Circle area. We have in our, and also Overlook, we have emergency response representatives in those areas. We have 2-way radios that we communicate during disasters. We really need the continuity of our neighborhood, and I do not believe it's going to affect voting overall when it comes to redistricting. So I really hope you'll consider keeping our area intact.
Could I just inquire? I want to make
Yes.
sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Dr. Phillips had suggested that we might find a way that the 2 incursions of District 1 into District 4 could be removed by cutting the census block, by cutting it into 2 parts or more than 1 part, some number of parts. Does that not answer your question? Are you speaking about something different happening than what he just
I would
said?
just like to keep the Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association intact. I mean, we have regular meetings. You know, we speak with our District 4 representative, so to cut us up doesn't make a lot of sense.
So what you're talking about is the difference between 105A, which has 2 fingers going up, and 105B, which has them all combined with the piece in the center that was between those 2 fingers now added in.
We prefer, well, the 2 ones that we really liked were 101R and 105B, but we are concerned with 105B in that it does take in that peninsula, which is that canyon.
And did Dr. Phillips comment that this could possibly be?
I did hear him say that, but he was talking about Montecito Country Club and talking about that division line, and that's something entirely different.
Well, then maybe I misunderstood what you were talking about, Doctor. Could you clarify for all of us?
Yes, I can. So I did mention the country club, And that is an easy cut because there's no people who live there. With this piece, I'll show it with Plan 105A because you can see this census block includes all of this area, including the scenic drive houses, which are very much a part of the east side. And so it's just a few houses that are in this part of the block. And so we can just estimate how many people live up here, and it's going to be a very small percentage of the total block. And we can just make a cut along what you see here, which is this black line, which is the current district boundary. And so the question is, do we want to follow the current district boundary around Cleveland Elementary School, which lumps it in with District 1, or follow the neighborhood boundary, the white line, which would continue along there? And I believe that would involve another census block cut as well.
And the portion in between those two that you just discussed, which on 105B seems to be joined together with those two.
Yes, but it's a separate census block, so it doesn't have to be combined.
Okay, I see.
I think as long as you can keep the peninsula with the canyon, you're talking 6 to 8 homes probably at the most along there. So if we can keep that peninsula intact with District 4, that would work for us.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments? Yes, if you'd come forward and just state your name, please.
Good evening. I'm Councilmember Alejandra Gutierrez, representing District 1. I have a couple comments. I'm actually going to comment on Cleveland Elementary School, which is currently in my district, and it's mostly populated Latinos. Most of the students that go to Cleveland live in my district, right underneath the hill. And my district is going to be affected because the boundary that we have right now that ends at Cañón Perdido is going to be moved up to Anapamu. And the upper east side and the lower east side, they're a very different demographic. And my district already has a very low voter turnout. It's less than 3,000 in a good turnout. And if I won by 8 votes, and I actually ran against an incumbent. So if we add those couple blocks that move my district to all the way to Anapamu, just with that, those extra blocks can make a huge difference in the representation for that district. Also, I also believe that because we were going through COVID and the census was out, a lot of the people in my district who are considered low-income immigrants, mostly Latinos, they didn't participate in the census like they normally would. The East Beach area is currently in my district. Most of the people in my district don't really go to the Mesa to enjoy the beach. They really stay in that East Beach area. It's the beaches and the parks in my district are the backyards to a lot of the homes and children's in my district because they don't have the luxury to live in homes where there is outside area. It's very compacted. The fact that currently I have a voice to represent part of the downtown area, it really gives representation to my district because whatever happens in the downtown area does reflect on Milpas, which is also considered my district's sort of like the downtown area. There's a lot of businesses there, and usually what happens on State Street does have an impact on Milpas. Let's see. Laguna. Those were my 3 main points. My district also right now has, it's very diverse. It has, the industrial part. We have 3 schools there and families that live there, but it is very divided demographic if you just move like 2-3 streets. And it will change dramatically in the voter turnout. And that's all, yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Councilmember Gutierrez, which of the plans would you prefer?
From the last 2 plans, let's see. I'm really concerned because, and I understand that we want to keep it where for District 3 we have more than a 41% CVAP. But again, giving the East Beach area to District 4, District 4 and District 2 are 2 different districts than District 1. Demographically, they're extremely different than District 1 from the population that lives there. The needs are very different. I wouldn't have a say on the downtown area. It's difficult. I'm just here to share my concerns. I wish that we can, that my district can keep that East Beach area, and that moving my boundary up to the the East Anapamu Street is really going to really reflect on the voter turnout. The demographics from Upper East Side and Lower East Side are 2 different. It's different. I don't know if you went to that area, but just driving upwards towards the Milpas area, the neighborhoods changed dramatically.
So as I'm looking at it, 101R seems to be the plan that keeps the East Beach in District 1. None of the others really do that. And does 101R also move up to Anapamu? I've never pronounced
No,
that.
it doesn't. So yeah, 101R ideally would be the best one out of all the maps.
Okay.
But it does affect District 3 on the Latino CVAP percentage.
Right.
You do have a difficult task.
No
So I'm
kidding.
just here to share my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Dr. Ebenstein.
I'm sorry, I was in the back of the room. Councilmember Gutierrez, I did not see you there. I did want to make a few comments that, again, these are information gathering meetings as much as they're ethical. I mean, we're engaging in problem solving in terms of, and that's largely based on empirical information. I do think that the argument of the peninsula into Eucalyptus Hill, the longer one in a number of the maps, but in particular in 105A, that is problematic, and if that can easily be districted into District 4, it seems like that would make a lot of sense. And similarly, the Montecito Country Club, in terms of, I think that those are both good changes that would respect communities of interest, and in the case of the little peninsula, even modestly, again, half a dozen homes perhaps, but everyone makes a difference on these CVAP percentages. I do think, agreeing with Councilmember Gutierrez, that there's strong arguments to keep Cleveland Elementary School in District 1, since I used to serve on the Santa Barbara Board of Education. And it's literally the case that 90% or so of children from who attend Cleveland School are from District 1. And I appreciate that a number of there are children from Eucalyptus Hill also who attend Cleveland School, and the Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association's support of Cleveland School is really is appreciated. But at the same time, I think that the reason why earlier the boundary on that case was drawn was so that it would so that Cleveland would be in District 1, and I think that's a little bit different than the other peninsula and Montecito Country Club. On the East Beach and Anapamu issues, and this is from having looked at these data very recently, there are reasonably higher Latino CVAP districts that are between Santa Barbara High School, Milpas, and Anapamu Street. And it's something that the numbers are actually, and that's why in some of these maps, those areas have been included in, yes, that's correct. In those areas there, it's again, a little bit problematic, but there you can see the ones that aren't purple, exactly. And then that's all the way to Anapamu. And then all of Santa Barbara High School, it's 45 acres. And so there's no students in there. So, I mean, it would be possible to draw the line, then you have only a one block area going in. So the thought was, again, Santa Barbara High School has many students who are attending District 1. And the only comment I would make to Councilmember Gutierrez is that I personally, and this is from a standpoint of the east side, is that I see District 1 as an educational district in terms of Santa Barbara High, Santa Barbara Junior High, Franklin Elementary School, Cleveland Elementary School, Adelante Charter School, and at the district offices, currently La Cuesta High School. And I think that that's a way to conceptualize District 1 in terms of the way these lines have been drawn. And I think that given the high percentage, the large percentage of Latinos in our community who attend local schools, that I would say there's an argument to be made. District 1 ought to be a school district. It's the school. We're locating schools in it. And so, as I say, so those are some thoughts on the Anapamu border boundary. And again, the Santa Barbara High School, that 45 acres, Santa Barbara High almost goes to Olive Street, which is where the line is. There's no, again, there's a few houses in that area. It's more than in the Little Peninsula. But the point is that, you know, in fact, at the corner of Santa Barbara High, it goes to Olive Street, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, or darn close. Those were some thoughts on Anapamu. The more deeper issue on something like 101R versus 105, the 105, either 105 approach, is that, in truth, the problem with 101R is that District 3 Latino CVAP of only 41%. And to keep the, to get that percentage up to 45 or 46%, which the Committee for District Elections believe is essential to the intent of the Beniolis decision, or agreement rather, stipulated judgment, that you really do have to move into some of that territory that's currently in District 1. But I kind of see there's a benefit to District 1 and 3 being next to each other on a little bit more significant boundary. I think that Garden is a reasonable boundary. 101 off-ramp is at Garden Street. It was chosen as that as a result of the Presidio at some point in time is on Santa Barbara Street. So the thought, this is going back decades, was that Garden was made the off-ramp rather than Santa Barbara Street for that reason. So that I think that it's essential that the District 3 Latino CVAP is raised as high as possible to 46%. I would note, too, that District 1 Latino CVAP at 51% is also 1% higher than in 101R. So I mean, on both counts, it's something that I think that was some of the reasoning that went into these lines. Again, I think our conception of District 1 is that it's an educational district primarily, and we'll have more significant educational institutions in it than any other district in the community, the only high school in the community, one of the 2 junior highs, 3 elementary schools, and 1 continuation high school. We think that that's an excellent focus. Similarly, District 2, our view is that City College should be in it because of the Mesa being affected by it, as well as the waterfront. And we think that in the Committee for District Elections map that we hope will be out to you next week, that some of these other issues will be addressed. But that was some of the reasoning that, again, it's problem solving, and as I say, good, reasonable people of goodwill can differ on values, but we should at least understand what the thinking was on, why lines were drawn and where the numbers are as best we can. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman, yes.
I just have one comment. Could you show my original map for District 1, please? And I believe the cutoff line is on Cañón Perdido. So Santa Barbara High School is not on my district. So the purple line there next to Santa Barbara High School, all of those homes up to Cañón Perdido, and it's a chunk of blocks of homes there that, like I was saying, it's a different demographic than the Lower East Side. And going back to the last public comment about my district being educational, I do agree. But all of those schools in my district, most of them are considered Title I, and all of the students there are from that area. Santa Barbara High School covers students from Montecito and my district, and also it covers different districts. So, and it's a large block there in my district. When I was talking about moving the boundary up to Anapamu, because even just walking the district, in that, getting close to Cañón Perdido in that area, the demographics started to change. And yeah, I just want to make you aware that yes, it's an educational district, but the high school brings in students from all areas. The 3 elementaries and the junior high, the junior high does bring also other people from the other areas, but mainly the elementary schools are mostly all the students from that area. And the demographics of those elementary schools are very different than the other elementaries around the city. So those extra streets going up to Anapamu will change the way the voter turnout will change dramatically.
Thank you. Any other comment? Sir. Another council member, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Good evening.
I am Oscar Gutierrez, the council member for the 3rd District. And I do like Plan 105B with the 46%. But when I look at the line that stops at Mission, and currently it goes up Modoc for me, and I could tell you that those homes and especially those apartment complexes that are in that area from Mission to Las Positas are heavily populated with undocumented Latinos. And I know they obviously didn't come up in the census because of that, but growing up here, when you think the West Side, that is considered the West Side, including the junior high. When you think about where the schools lie, La Cumbre Junior High is, or always has been, considered a West Side school. So 105B, if somehow I could add that area of Modoc to Las Positas, I feel like it is in 102R almost, including the junior high. I feel like that would be pretty spot on to representing what the West Side 3rd District embodies. I also like being able to have part of the waterfront. So if I had my way of painting the map, it would look like 105B with the upper part of 102R and the lower part of 101 that hits the waterfront. That's basically all I have to say. I like in 105B that we do get some of Castillo, because as Lanny stated, that is where the West Side Community Center is, so it kind of just makes sense that it would be in my district as well. So other than that, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilwoman Sneddon, come forward.
Thank you again for your consideration and time. And after hearing your presentation about why certain areas were carved out, I just want to follow up on some of those. So could we look at the original map or our current map for just a moment? When Councilmember Alejandra Gutierrez was talking about the areas around Santa Barbara High School, that little zone right there, where your cursor is right there, there are a lot of Spanish-speaking residents there, from knocking on doors, and we have adjoining districts, Councilmember Alejandra Gutierrez and myself, and it does feel very different. Knocking on doors there does seem to belong more with the concerns of the East Side area. So I just wanted to comment on that, I think around Santa Barbara High, there are probably some areas where you could pick up higher numbers and help with the CVAP there. And then since it sounds like we're using parts of different maps rather than maybe settling on any one particular one, I just wanted to add a few comments on 101R. I understand now that area that I shaded out for you was cut out for a reason, actually, to help with the CVAP numbers for District 1, so we can disregard that. But on 105A, just looking at it from a District 4 perspective, it's an embarrassment of riches. I feel like having all of that hillside area and Coast Village Road, and then all of that portion of the waterfront seems disproportionate to me as too beneficial, actually, for District 4. And I think that's why I lean more towards the maps where District 3 retains its waterfront and where District 1 retains its waterfront, which is why 101R still is appealing to me, or for the city, I would think. So then for 105B, back to that little, I won't call it a peninsula, but the pizza there of Eucalyptus Hill. I do agree and support that Cleveland should be in District 1. District 4 has two other large schools in its district, both Peabody Charter School and Roosevelt Elementary School. And Cleveland would be really well served by having its district representative, where the students mainly live in District 1, to be retained there. But all the rest of that in Eucalyptus Hill neighborhoods, it really would be cutting a neighborhood in half, as you've heard, with the neighborhood associations and common interest, and really notably their block safety program, where they have block leaders who have the safety radios, and they're in communication with each other and regularly testing their radios, and really an exemplary model of community safety, and dividing that up seems at cross purposes with what we're trying to do with districts. And then with the Montecito Country Club, I really don't think it matters where it goes. So I don't know that it needs to be in District 4. And I think along there are a lot of apartments and homes that I think characteristically you would think of and fit with East Side. So I think keeping that within the East Side makes sense, and Cleveland Elementary School within the East Side, but the rest of that pizza, if they're parts of 105B, really need to stay together with the whole Eucalyptus Hill area to help them with their sort of safety concerns and district representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Come to the microphone.
I just want to clarify, I do think Cleveland should be in District 1. I was just looking at the area around where that pink area is. Keep Cleveland in District 1. I absolutely feel it should be there. And Montecito Country Club, whatever. And I also agree with Councilwoman Snedden as far as both the west side and the east side having areas down by the beach. Having been a teacher at Harding School years ago, we would take our children on field trips to the beach, and children would often say, "I wish I lived here." And I said, "You do." So, anyway, thank you.
Any other comments? All right. Well, thank you. This has been an informative hour and a half as well as an informative afternoon for us. Any questions by the other members of the commission to our experts?
None from me.
Judge Khan? Okay. So I'm assuming then, Dr. Phillips, that you would be able to create a map that cuts those census blocks and gets rid of the fingers that seem to have been of great concern. Okay. Thanks. All right, thank you. We're going to, I think, move on to discussion of future agendas. We next meet on March 9th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Judge White will be appearing by Zoom, so I don't know anything about the technicalities of doing this both live and on Zoom at the same time. I'll leave that to the city to consider. But what I'm seeing here, I wish this were a Chinese restaurant and we could take a little of one plan and a little of another plan, but that can't happen for us. So what I see is a lot of plans, but what I hear is a focus on a few plans of interest to anyone who has spoken today. And I wonder if at our next meeting we can consider, with your guidance, winnowing out these plans so that when we get to the 30th of March, we have not 12 or 9 or whatever it is, but 3 or something like that. Would that be a good idea from the commission's point of view?
I totally agree, and I think we've gotten a lot of guidance this evening on how to do that.
How to do that. Judge Khan? So I'll ask the city to make recommendations for us on that for the next time, and we'll have our thoughts, and then when we go into the last meetings, we'll have just a few select maps to choose from.
So, Chair Johnson, to clarify, are you asking us to make a recommendation as to which plans to focus on, or would you like to discuss that now? We can definitely do that now.
Well, clearly, we should maybe discuss it for a minute to help you. Clearly, we have heard a few of them mentioned repeatedly as being good. A few that people didn't like at all, but we have 101R, we have the 105A and 105B. Do you want to make any comments on which ones maybe we keep, and then let the city make its recommendations later? Judge White. Yes. Oh, okay. Mr. Cullen would like to speak, and we would like to hear from him.
Chair Johnson, members of the commission, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if the staff were directed to, based on what you've heard tonight, prepare a matrix that identified the pros and cons on the different maps, I would feel uncomfortable with us making a recommendation.
Fair enough. And I think that would be helpful, and I loosely use that language. With that in mind, Judge White.
I completely agree because I've taken about 5 pages of notes and I would hate to miss something.
Yeah. Okay. But I think we have enough of our notes that when you do such a matrix, we'll be able to collate that with our own notes. Okay, good. So that's what we'll ask you to do, the way he said it. Okay. Any other things to be had on next agenda specifically? Well, maybe a little overwhelmed with information. Dr. Phillips.
Regarding the matrix, would you like us to do that for all the plans? Would you like us to do it for the R plans and then the newer ones? Or would you like us to just focus on the ones that have been receiving more support?
Well, what I'd comment on is since we have our plans on 101 and 102 and also 103, that we leave off the basic ones, 101, 102, 103, and do 101R, 102R, 103R. Would that be all right with the commission? So you could eliminate those 3. And then after that, we've heard a lot about 104 and 105A and B. So I think just leave off flat 101, 102, and 103 without the R and do the rest. That would be helpful. Thanks. Anything else?
Chair Johnson?
Yes.
I wanted to bring up one potential change for a future agenda, and I will ask for Mr. Colon's guidance on this. As we've seen tonight, there's been a lot of public comment and there's been a lot of conversations that were had. And so one thing that's in the back of my mind is how we want to memorialize the meeting minutes moving forward. Now, I'm not terribly sure as to what Mr. Colon's advice would be here, but one idea that I had was finding a way to make the minutes much more brief, given that a recording of every meeting is actually available on a YouTube channel, and that link is available on the city's redistricting website. And so the public can go ahead and view that video to see the more detailed public comment, and the meeting minutes can be substantially made more brief. Does that make sense to you all?
Any objection from the members?
I have no objection. I think that's completely reasonable.
I think it's unfair to ask you to try to summarize the comments into minutes. It really is. So you will not please anybody by summarizing their comments when the full comments are available. So
Great,
good
thank
idea.
you.
Thanks. Anything else? All right. Anything, Michelle, Dr. Phillips?
No, thank you. Oh, yes, and one more item that we actually skipped over, the discussion of your availability for the March 30 public hearing.
I think we had all set aside the entire day, correct? For that. So if we envision, that will be our deliberation in public on the maps that remain in contention. And as one member put it, after we pick it, they'd like to have a chance to make us defend our choice. I think that was one of the council members who said that. Well put. And so we'll need time to do that. Does anyone have any thoughts about how much time we should give ourselves?
When you say entire day,
Well, I mean,
what are the times that you're?
that's what we get to decide. We've set it aside, and they're asking us to decide which portion. If we meet at noon and give ourselves from noon to 6, is that plenty of time for us? Do you want to meet a little later and allow for maybe the public to be here after 5 for comments on our decision? We've not been asked to think about this before now, so.
I don't see needing the entire day.
No.
I think we would need 3 to 4 hours and then perhaps an hour for public comment.
Okay, so maybe something like 3 to 7, so that people can come after work, or 2 to 6, something like that.
Are we locked into the 30th as a day?
A little
if this
bit.
has to be.
Unless we really can't, I mean, we can discuss something, but does that not work well right now?
Well, I have an all-day obligation the next day.
Oh.
And if we go well into the evening, I'm not going to get home till about 10 o'clock.
Right.
Leaving me very little time to prepare for last-minute briefs and whatnot that are submitted to me.
What if we said, I just a little concerned with having some time after normal working hours. If we said 2 to 6, would that work?
Well, I'll make it work if that's,
Well, at least it'll give you the morning
Majority.
to read the briefs for the next day, maybe. We always get things to read at 9 o'clock the night before that's hundreds of pages long. It's a little game they play with us. Yeah. Does that work? I don't want you to be,
oh, I'll make it work. I mean, look, we're here for them. And, I mean, if they want to be heard, I'm not even so sure 6 o'clock is going to be a drop-dead time. You know how things are.
they do.
So, you know, we want the public to be entirely heard and the views and comments to be entirely considered. It's,
Well,
so,
let me ask Mr. Cullen, because whether the importance of having some after regular work hours strikes you as a factor that we really should consider, or is it not so much? If we have this available on Zoom as well.
That's always controversial, Your Honor. I would say that I expect we'll have a lot more participation as we get to the end.
Right.
So after hours is polite to working people.
Okay. Well, why don't, 2 to 6, 1 to 6? Maybe some can be here during regular work hours, and then some have the opportunity for after normal work hours?
I think 2 to 6, it gives us the time to determine what it is that we're going to do, and I think it gives the public at least an hour, if not more, because some might be able to come at 4.
Right.
okay.
Okay, 2 to 6. Consensus built.
I have a question for clarification. We talked about trying to keep the number of maps within a manageable, number. But you've heard comments, Doctor, in connection with some of the concerns, keeping District 4 intact as much as possible, and other comments from other council members and people from the public. Are we going to get yet another iteration, let's say 105C, that attempts as best as possible to integrate those comments?
Yeah, so here's what we can do. Because we have that census block issue for all the plans, what we can bring to you next meeting is for the R plans, 101R, 102R, 103R. Maybe we can attach an E, so to signify Eucalyptus Hill, by breaking up that census block so that we keep that neighborhood together. So you won't have to consider previous versions that have that lack that. And then for the 104 and 105, we'll do the same, attach an E to it to signify that change. Other changes that have been proposed are much more substantial and would result in a very different map. So if we receive direction to draw a plan that, for example, the council member from District 3 suggested drawing a District 3 that would be very different from any of the iterations that are on any of the current plans. So if you were to want that, we would need direction to draw that plan, and that would have ripple effects for other districts and have a very different plan.
Anyone here requesting that Dr. Phillips draw up such a plan as of now?
I think not. I think we will have enough to work with, and then we'll have public comment, which still gives us the right to go back and do additional tweaking if needed.
That would be my vote as well.
So just to clarify, you're proposing an E version to 104 and 105? What about 101?
So what I'm proposing is bringing to you 101RE, 102RE, 103 RE, 104E, and 105AE, and 105BE. And one last question is, there is a plan that has been drafted with a collaboration with the Committee for District Elections that we weren't able to publish in time for this meeting. And it's very similar to Plan 105A, but if you would like to see that, we can bring that forward as well and have an E attached to that to make the necessary change there.
That's the one Dr. Ebenstein referenced we'd be getting tomorrow?
Yeah.
I think we should probably have that. He'd be getting it tomorrow.
He gets it tomorrow, we get it.
Yeah, on the 9th. We'll get it on the 9th, right? Mr. Cologne, you know the answer.
May I ask a question, Your Honor? Dr. Phillips, have we received any maps other than Dr. Ebenstein's from the public?
Not to my knowledge, and it was something that I drafted myself, but with him contacting me and directing the changes. So it's something that I did with my mapping tools, but it was at his direction.
I guess my point, Your Honor, members of the commission, is that we may see maps coming in from the public yet ahead of us.
We will, and we have not excluded those and would not exclude them until we've had a chance to see them, for sure. Someone may, later in the game, make that choice to present that, and we'll absolutely look at it.
So are we to understand that we will have that additional map by the 9th, our next meeting? Thank you.
Okay, I think that's the logistics. So, anything else, Michelle?
No, we just have one last slide showing the next hearing information along with the location. We plan to meet in the same location next time, and you may adjourn when ready.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you all very much for being here, particularly the diehards who stayed till the very end. So we'll see you next time, probably.